Hey guys, Mrs. Klein here. This is April, week 4, day 4 and 5. For those of you who have the questions over Sarah the Gull and Macy the Elephant. Now, I will post this on Thursday, so you guys can do all of the questions on Thursday, or you can do half the questions on Thursday and half on Friday. But Friday is technically a day off school, so I would go ahead and do them all on Thursday if I were you. Okay, let's go ahead and start with some of our questions. Let me get to the right screen here. Okay. So it says, use the article Sarah the Gull to answer questions 1 and 2. Describe what happens when the weather gets colder in the story. Use at least 2 details from the text. Okay, so we need to actually go back into the story, Sarah the Gull, and find 2 details that tell what happens when the weather gets colder. So I actually need to share a different screen with you. And it is this story right here, okay, where it talks about the weather getting colder. We need to find 2 details that we're gonna write. Let's see here. Every day they'd fly over the waves. Sometimes they'd get, okay, at night. Well, one day it starts to get colder. The little fish that were always swimming in the waves were a lot harder to find. Ooh, that's one thing that happened, right? The little fish that were swimming in the waves were a lot harder to find. There were no more people coming to the beach, so there was no food from people too. That's 2 things that happened, okay? So we need to actually go back to that question. And let me pull up the text here. Okay. Describe what happens when the weather gets cold in the story. Use at least 2 details from the text. So we can say, the weather gets colder, fish are harder to find, and there is no food from people. Okay, that's the 2 things that happens when it gets colder. All right, let's look at question number 2. Sarah and her mom have a problem. Their problem is that there is no food for them to eat when the weather gets colder. What do they do to solve this problem? So how do they solve their problem that there's no food to eat because it's cold? What do they decide to do? Yeah, they decide to fly down south, down to Florida. So we need to be able to restate this. A good way to restate this would be Sarah and her mom decide to solve the problem of no food when the weather gets cold by flying down south to Florida. Okay, good job, guys. You guys are doing great. These were great stories. I really enjoyed reading them. Okay, let's look at this question, number 3. What is the problem that Macy and her parents have at the beginning of the story? Okay, so now we're on the elephant story. What was the problem at the beginning of the story? Remember, they were walking around the jungle, and one day, the jungle, it was too hot, right? So I'm gonna say Macy and her parents. Actually, I'm gonna erase that. I'm gonna say the problem that Macy and her parents have at the beginning of the story is that it is too hot in the jungle. Oops, this line had a typing error. Okay, so it was too hot in the jungle on that one day. All right, let's go ahead and look at the next set of questions. Sorry, I have to switch screens here for this. Hopefully I picked the right page. There we go. Okay, how do Macy and her parents solve their problem? So what do they decide to do? Who can tell me, what do they decide to do to solve the problem that it's too hot? They walk around. Good. They walk around where? To find what? What do they walk around and look for? A place to cool off. Good. So Macy and her parents solve their problem by walking around and looking for a place to cool off. Right? Good job, guys. Okay. Now let's look at the next part. It says, oh, compare. What does compare mean again? Tell how they are similar. Good job. Tell how they are the same, how they're similar. Compare the problems in Sarah the Gull and Macy the Elephant. Okay. Well, one, we can definitely tell how they're different. That's what number 6 says. Contrast the problems. Tell how they're different. Well, one was it was too cold, and the other was that it was too hot. Let's go back and look at our Macy the Elephant story real quick, because I want to see. Let me see here. It says, one day the sun is very strong and the temperature is very high. Macy and her mom use their big ears to cool themselves off. They flap their ears back and forth, trying to push the heat, but it isn't enough because it's still too hot. They walk around to look for a way to cool down. Okay, so how are their problems similar? I can tell you one way that they're similar. This is kind of stretching it, but one way that they're similar is that they're both with their families when they have problems. So compare the problems in Sarah the Gull and Macy the Elephant. We can say the problems in Sarah Gull and Macy the Elephant are similar because, oh, and they're both problems that animals are having, right? Because they are both problems for animals, and they are both problems for the animal's family. Okay, that's how they're similar. Now, contrast the problem means tell how the problems are different. That's much easier for us to do. We can do that. So we can say the problems in Sarah the Gull are different than the problems in Macy the Elephant. Sarah's problem is that the weather is too what? Too cold for them to find food. Macy's problem is what? The weather is what? Is too hot. Okay. That's how they're different. Okay, let's go ahead and look at the next set of questions. I'm going to have to switch screens again. Sorry for switching screens so much, but this one had quite a few questions with it that were all spaced out. Okay, let me get my text box open here. Okay, compare, again, this is telling how it's similar. Compare what Sarah and her mother do to solve their problem with what Macy's family does to solve its problem. Okay, so how do they both solve their problem? Sarah and her mom, what? They fly to another place. What do Macy and her family do? They walk around to find a cool spot. So how are they similar? They both have to what? Yeah, they both have to move to find what they need to solve their problem, okay? So we can say Sarah and Macy both solve their problems by moving to another place, okay? Or by walking, moving, walking, flying, okay? By moving to another place. Contrast, that means tell how they're different. Contrast what Sarah and her mother do to solve their problem with what Macy's family does to solve its problem. So when they solve their problems, how are they different? There's something very obvious. First of all, Sarah and her mom, how do they get to Florida? Yeah, they fly. How do Macy and her family get to the pool of water? They walk. Good. Sarah and her mom fly to Florida to solve their problem. Macy and her family walk to the pool of water to solve their problem. Right? Okay, that's all that we have for those. You guys can pause the screen on anything that you need to continue writing or to catch up. I will talk to you guys later. I really enjoyed those stories. All right, love and hugs. Bye.